Hey all, and welcome back to When the Night Comes. I'm Major to Mischief. Let's jump back on into it, shall we? It's easy to tell what we're dealing with as we draw nearer to the scene. Dozens of hunters and enforcers of varying ranks saturate the small clearing, the majority of them still dressed in their festival attire, much like Piper and I. We spot a retrieval team emerging from the tree line. Their faces are pale and drawn. It's then that I know. They didn't make it.
You're here.
We are. Ran into some trouble on the way, but we took care of it. I gather that's why you're so late. It's fine. Obviously such things cannot be prevented.
It's not good news, as I'm sure you can tell.
My heart sinks. I knew, but hearing it out loud is still unpleasant. Do we have an identity? They shake their head, brushing the front of their fur coat that I'm sure they're less than happy about wearing in such a situation.
We cannot identify
Their voice catches.
There is no body. Again, nothing but... well, I don't need to repeat such monstrous details. You've read the reports from the previous murders. Much of the same ghastliness.
Piper scoffs, her shoulders tensing, and I swear I can see tears in her eyes. She's hurting and angry. So angry that I can feel it. Gooseflesh prickles across my skin thanks to her close proximity, and my own emotions waver with the sheer force of it. This is fucking ridiculous.
This cannot keep happening, August.
I flinch, feeling the surge of energy as August reacts. The smell of ozone is suddenly thick in the air. There's a flash in the darkness, and violet sparks crackle about their clenched fist, their eyes alight.
Thank you, Piper, for your input. I didn't know this was upsetting. I assumed everyone was enjoying this.
A dozen eyes turn to look at them. They quickly calm themselves. August looks beyond exhausted as always. The skin beneath their eyes is purple, their cheeks drawn. Piper opens her mouth to retaliate, but wisely decides against it. This actually might be the first time I've seen her look guilty. August averts their gaze as if they can't bear to look at her. They're upset too.
I suggest you keep your thoughts to yourself in such a situation. Unless you have any useful insight.
It's not a question.
Yes. Sorry, General.
I thought as much. We're all hurting, Piper. Not just you. August sighs deeply, sparing us both a woeful glance before they address the gathered forces.
Hunters, any mages present will patrol the immediate area. Generals will head further afield and begin an extensive perimeter search. I want no stone unturned here. Any juniors need to get the hell out of here. You're not equipped to even think about dealing with whatever this thing is. And I won't be responsible for your demise. Anyone else present is to report back to headquarters immediately. We'll need people on the ground in order to reassure the townsfolk. I don't want this causing widespread panic. It's damage control time.
There's a quiet, subdued mumble of, "Yes, General," and they all dutifully begin to obey August's orders, disappearing in various directions. Would you like me to join the perimeter search? No, I'd like you to go home. Leave us to the others. We need you ready for anything that might transpire overnight. Of course. Piper fidgets uneasy. What? You're a major, aren't you? If you were listening, you'll know what I asked of you. Tension between them is yet again immensely unpleasant. Of course, General. Should have expected such a response. And I wonder if she'll ever learn. Or maybe she's hoping to rile them up. I can't tell. She throws me a quick, pitiful glance before she glares at August and turns to join her comrades. Later. August massages their temples, inhaling sharply. I notice that their hands are trembling, and I unconsciously take a step towards them, fearful that they might pass out. They hold out their hand. I'm fine, really. General.
I appreciate your concern, Hunter, really. Anything that ails me is my fault and mine alone.
Now please head back. I meant it when I said I need you rested.
You'll be the first to hear if anything significant happens. I'll send a messenger to retrieve you when the victim has been identified.
Of course. Good night and stay safe. If you think I'm staying out here in this for another second, you're sorely mistaken. I have a mountain of paperwork the size of the iBack on my desk. Farewell, Raven. I take a final look at the scene where the Enforcer witches have cast their mage lights over a bloodied patch of grass, leaving them to their work no matter how much I long to investigate. After that outburst, it's best not to question my Enforcer's request. I bow my head before I turn, eager to get out of here. As I head back through the woodland, I notice how eerily silent it is. A strange sense of calm washes over me, then a whisper. Harry. I stop dead in my tracks, my hand hovering over my weapon. I see nothing, feel nothing, no matter how hard I concentrate. Then I realize that voice, that familiar yet subdued ache that begins to creep into my temple. James? You deserve to know. Pain ebbs and flows, my breathing growing unsteady, almost as if something weighs heavy upon my chest. The fleeting, comforting calm that had just settled over me is snatched away as his voice continues to echo in my mind. No what? I'm sorry. A sharp burning pain shoots up along my spine and I fall to the ground. The snow-covered grass is wet beneath my fingertips. His words were cut off, and after a moment I'm yet again surrounded by a blissful silence. Fucking ghosts. I drag myself to my feet, and now I only have one thing on my mind. One thing that I must do. Visit Lieutenant General and find out what the hell is happening to me. After having no luck finding him in his own office, I head to the only other place I assume he may be at this hour. The door to August's office is thankfully ajar, so I peek around the frame, finding Harry standing alone. His report in hand, his coat hung in the back of August's chair. He looks exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed. However, when he notices me, he still offers me a bright, earnest smile.
I can't tell you how relieved I am to see you safe.
My throat feels tight and I can't place why. Is he the murderer? James is doing a good job of making it difficult for me to stop thinking about him. The pain I felt from his final moment was raw, like an exposed nerve. For some reason, when I think of it, I now think of Harry. I need to know why he wanted me to come here, why everything seems to point back to the man standing before me. I need to tell you something, but I need you to promise that you won't think I've lost my mind. Harry narrows his gaze, nodding once. Go on. I visited the graveyard a few days ago while I was getting my bearings. He stays silent, but I can't help but notice the way his knuckles bleed white as he tightens his fist. I felt an overwhelming sense of grief there. Pain, a yearning for a lost love, a sense of failure and crippling sorrow. I thought nothing of it at the time. It's not unheard of for those that have been murdered to feel scared or sentimental in their final moments, in my experience. But Harry drops his gaze, his bright eyes sad and edged with tears. My words starting to catch in my throat, but I relent. The other night I visited again. It's almost like something was pulling me there. I heard more, not just memory this time. He spoke to me. He looks like he's seen a ghost. He stares at me wide-eyed, quickly swiping at his cheeks.
Oh, James.
I get the horrible feeling that he's been waiting for this. I need to know. He nods, clearly understanding, and he takes a deep, shuddering breath.
James was assigned as my very first hunter the moment we both graduated at 18. He'd shown remarkable promise in school, basically skipping all of the junior nonsense that they force on you. I, too, had impressed, so we were placed together in the hopes that we'd become unstoppable. We were inseparable in the field together for decades, until I took this post as Lieutenant General.
I pause, another deep breath, one that shakes.
But, as well as being my subordinate, he was also my partner. My husband.
I'm sorry, bro. Fuck. My heart sinks, bile rising in my throat. I've read countless reports about him in the infamous Hunter Lane over the years, but I never knew his first name or anything about him other than his incomparable work. Official records tend to omit personal details for the safeties of the hunter or enforcer in question, unless they become a leader like Harry. They were inimitable, the best of the best. Together they killed some of the most nefarious creatures in our history, and without question, every young trainee aspires to be just like Hunter Lane. I think he's just gone, and what Harry must be going through. I'm so sorry, I had no idea.
For nearly 10 years, yes. But we'd known each other forever. I failed the hunter initiation quite dramatically, and he was taken away to his father's home country to train to become what I'd always dreamed of becoming. Life had other plans for me, but we still found each other in the end. He used to joke that we were destined. The romantic fool. I really don't think it's sunk in that he's gone just yet. I keep thinking he's going to walk through my door, covered head to toe in blood and grime, with a stupid, wonderful grin on his face.
I'm sorry, Mr. Obi-Wan Kenobi, sir. I notice how his eyes light up when he talks about him.
They say that people deal with grief differently, but I haven't quite figured mine out just yet. I apologize for not telling you, but it was important to me that I could trust you first. My judgment has been impaired, I'll admit it, though this turn of events isn't exactly what I expected. All I can think about now is justice. About the others that died before him, and what we could have done to stop it. What I could have done to stop it.
What did he tell you when he spoke to you? His words waver, and he mindlessly fiddles with his wedding ring, eagerly awaiting my response. I think about what Ezra said about being careful who I share this with. That warning reply to the Lieutenant General of all of Eskria. I'm gonna tell him the truth. I don't feel like I can lie to this poor man. He told me to leave, that he failed, and that there's no hope. He swallows thickly, his expression unchanging. I got the impression he wanted to say more, but I don't know how he managed to communicate with me in the first place. I think he can only say so much before he fades away. It feels like a great struggle for him to reach out. I cannot explain it. He closes his eyes tight, shaking his head as if he can't bear to hear anymore.
I will need you to speak to Augustus about this. They know more about psionic magic than anyone here. I'm sure they'll be able to help you figure this out. I do not trust anyone else.
Then a hopeful look.
Did he truly not say anything else?
He didn't, but the first night that I felt him, I could tell how much he loved you, Harry. You were all he could think about in his final moments. He laughs quietly.
Yes. Well, he's all I can think about too. A curse now, I suppose.
Buddy, I'm so sorry. Silence hangs heavy between us, and I don't quite know what to say next. He looks devastated, understandably. He must have so much on his mind already with the latest murder and now this. The way he came alive when he spoke about James didn't go unnoticed. I wonder if maybe talking about him would lift his mood. There's a lot of funders out there that can only aspire to be half as brilliant as Hunter Lane. I would love to hear what he was like if you don't mind. His somber expression disappears and he seems to brighten up a little.
He was a cocky son of a bitch, but it worked well for him in the field. He was never careless, though. I often found myself watching him instead of paying attention to whatever was attacking us. Luckily, he could fight well enough to protect us both, or I'm sure we'd have been in trouble. A lot of enforcers choose to stay cooped up in a stuffy office away from all that danger. Working with James made me not want to miss a thing.
He digs into his coat pocket, retrieving his wallet and pulling out a small weathered photo. He pauses, staring me down as if he has reservations, but then he hands it over. It's of him and James. They look young, beyond happy, and possibly in love. I'm sorry. He just looks so cute and happy. God damn it.
We were unbearable to be around, I'm sure.
I studied the genuine smiles and the way their fingers are laced together. I may not know James aside from the voice in my head, but I feel a strange connection to him. As if I've also known him forever. Thank you for showing me. He tucks the photo back into its place right beside a neatly folded up letter.
Well, apparently he appears to have taken a liking to you. It's only fair for you to put a face to the name, I suppose.
He stares down at his hand, once again twisting his wedding band. His expression is neutral when he meets my gaze, but in a split second his disposition shifts to the stiff formality I'm so used to when dealing with figures of authority. I gather their conversation about his dearly departed is over.
What happened tonight could have been prevented. It's unacceptable that we were so aware of the looming threat, and yet we let our guard down and lost another life. This cannot happen again.
I nod, agreeing wholeheartedly, but I cannot shake the feeling that, yes, this could have been prevented if it weren't for the festival. The festival he was so adamant went ahead despite the others of clear apprehension, including August. I think better pressing the matter. Harry suddenly doesn't seem like a man willing to admit fault. Did you speak to the twins as I've requested? I did, as I'm sure you expected. I didn't get much out of them. Quiet hum, which I think is in different agreement, and Harry sighs heavily. They are rather inept at both lying and sheer avoidance. Adept, sorry. I'm interested in speaking to the brother alone, though. There was something off about him. Like he just didn't want to be there. I also came across a letter outside the building, one that was addressed to him. The language looked demonic. Harry nods indifferent, and I wonder if he even heard me. He clears his throat and flicks his eyes to the side as though he has no interest in humoring me any longer.
There's nothing more you can do here until we've identified the victim. Get some rest. It's late. You're dismissed, Hunter.
Though I'm used to being addressed in such a manner, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't perplexed by the shift in his demeanor. I chalk it down to grief, just like he said, but I can't help but feel like maybe I've disappointed him somehow. I turn and I quietly leave. Snow was still falling as I step outside. Though the hour is late, there's certainly no peaceful quiet in Lunaris tonight. The streets outside of headquarters are bustling with hunters and forcers and everything in between. I keep my head down as I make my way towards the wolf. I fall into a trance as I replay my conversation with Harry over and over, trying to pinpoint the exact moment that made him change his attitude so drastically. I snapped back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. When I bumped into something cold and hard, finding a pair of familiar golden eyes staring back at me when I look up. His outfit is so cool. I love it. I step back, brushing down the front of my coat. I can see that his lips are on the cusp of curling back into a vaguely amused smirk. You can say that. It's been a long night. He offers me a sympathetic look, shoving his hands firmly in his coat pockets as a duo of enforcers pass by. They make a point to glare at him, and by proxy me for being near him. Taking a screenshot. Finn dutifully avoids their gaze like a man who has centuries to avoid feigning indifference the way people like me treat him and his kind.
I can imagine. I'm just glad to see that you're okay. I was worried for you when you ran off back there.
Oh yes, that. The flare of adrenaline that the hunt had granted me, I'd foolishly almost forgotten about the stilling promise of his cool lips against mine. Now it feels like a dream as I stand on the snow-covered street. But Finn is all too real. I clear my throat, distracted by the thought of it. I'm sorry we were so rudely interrupted. He laughs, and the sight of his wide, toothy smile is enough to make me forget my troubles, even if just for a fleeting moment. Somehow Finn always serves as a good distraction.
Nothing like a good murder to ruin such a moment. You know, they'll have your head for treason if they hear you joking about such things. Regardless, I really am happy that you're safe. I had fun with you.
I should hope that you did. It would be hard not to. Turn to check the street as Claire turning back to me with a serious look. I have my clan patrolling the woods. They'll ensure they're out until dawn, searching if necessary. Anything we can do to help whatever or whoever is doing this. Anything we can do to help find whatever or whoever is doing this, sorry. I'm grateful for the assistance, and I certainly can't say I've ever had an entire clan of vampires as allies before. I'm optimistic that their help will be of great value to me. That's very kind. After an indecipherable pause, Finn's expression drifts somewhere far away. You know, I was out there just now. I picked up a scent, something familiar. Familiar how? He steps closer and there's a certain air of caution in the way he addresses me, as if he's unsure that we're truly alone. I didn't get to hang around, there were too many enforcers, but the blood on that stone we found on the graveyard with the scene of... He pauses, apprehension clouding the way he looks at me. His next words are glum and dead as his demeanor. Of Hunter Lane's death. He's testing the waters as if he holds... He's testing the waters as the way he holds my stare as anything could go by, waiting to see just how clued in I am. I know about him, Finn. I spoke to Harry just now. He might be a vampire, but the look that crosses his face momentarily isn't exactly subtle. He casts his eyes away from me, the frownlet settled at his brow softening around the edges. He licks one of his fangs, thinking with a forlornness that suits him a little too well. I see. And how did that go? I shrug because I can't really offer him anything else. I feel deflated and defeated. Not great. He's in mourning. I don't think he's in the right mind to be making decisions. Finn purses his lips, contemplating my statement.
That's a bold way to speak of your Lieutenant General, but I don't doubt your instincts. I've lost loved ones, and it's never easy. The mind needs time to heal after such trauma, and all Harry is doing is delaying his grief.
Eventually, he throws me a half-hearted smile, but I sense it's something pitiful rather than friendly. I suspect my frustration with my current predicament is glaringly obvious without him having to read my thoughts.
I'm sorry you've been kept so in the dark. I can sense that you're frustrated, and I don't blame you. As much as I may not agree with certain information being withheld, it truly is for your safety.
It's funny because everyone keeps saying such things, but it certainly doesn't feel like anything other than sheer avoidance. He moves a hand from his pocket, running long fingers through his hair with a knowing exhale. Yes, well, I cannot excuse anyone else's behavior, but I apologize for my own. Come by the catacombs when you get the chance. I have some things we can discuss that may help. Spending some time underground in a tomb sounds less than appealing. Finn doesn't look like the kind of man who lives in squalor. No, look how fucking fancy that outfit is. I want that for my own. Plus, any information is valued, and Finn has lived here long enough to know the ins and outs of this strange little town. Thank you, I'll take you up on that as soon as I can. He tips his head, encouraging me to follow him towards the wolf, I assume. Come on, I'll walk you home. I'm eager to get inside, and with a few strides I catch up to him, falling in step. I don't require an escort, you know. Everyone seems so intent on ensuring I'm safe, but you all seem to be forgetting I was brought here to save the day. Supposedly. He purses his lips in an obvious attempt to stop himself from laughing, and I watch the bob of his throat as he swallows the noise.
I'm aware that you require no assistance, but think about the hunters that were killed. They were of your caliber, your rank. The best of the best, as the enforcers love to say. The thought of you ending up like them is not a pleasant one. We may not have known you for very long, but we don't want to see you get hurt. I've certainly grown quite fond of you.
Yeah, we almost kissed. I tried to hide my smile, but it's hard when he's being so wonderfully charming. Very well, but no coddling. Understand? Yes, General. He laughs again when he catches sight of the dramatic roll of my eyes, sidestepping with startling grace to avoid the elbow that I launched towards his ribcage. We walk quietly through the streets, the cobblestones glistening with frost. The moon is full and hangs low in the sky, as it always seems to here in Lunaris, and Finn exhales sharply to break the silence. I glance at him, too tired to ask him any of the hundreds of questions that run through my mind. I think he knows somehow, because he also seems to have something on the tip of his tongue. We stop outside the wolf, the lantern that hangs above the door, dark thanks to the late hour. I glance up at the now familiar sign, a scrappy-looking white wolf howling in a full moon, and I laugh. Finn leans against the mismatched brick and stares at me quite intently, his eyes unnervingly bright in the growing darkness. What's funny? You're all masters at being painfully cryptic, and yet I still feel at home. But I shouldn't trust a single one of you, should I? He turns, checking we're alone again before he leans a little closer, his voice low.
That's for you to decide. So, tell me, Hunter, what does that tricky little gut of yours tell you about all of this? About us? What do you feel?
I trust all of the romanceable characters, though, is the thing. I'm not a huge fan of August, because they're kind of really haughty, but, like, everyone else I like so far. I find myself getting lost in molten gold, watching him watch me. A witty response turns to ash upon my tongue. I'm hyper-aware of how close we are, caught by the memory of his hand in mine at the beach, our lips hovering so close I could feel his cool breath against my skin. He remained silent. I clear my throat. So the festival. He smiles softly, fingers twitching by his side.
I was expecting some brilliant insight into your investigation, but I'm more than happy to discuss our date.
I huff an incredulous laugh, the noise catching my throat thanks to his bold statement. A date, was it? He fans his fence, clutching his chest where I know his heart doesn't beat. My smile widens at the ridiculousness of the gesture.
I cannot believe that you would dismiss our evening together as anything other than a date. Especially after you seduced me so beautifully.
I wouldn't say I seduced you at all, sir. His fangs grate his bottom lip and my toes curl my boots at the thought of what they're capable of. A stark reminder that he's still a creature, and I'm very much a human that kills such things. I seduced you, did I? If I recall correctly, you were the one who took my hand, who leaned in. His answering laugh is enchanting, his nose crinkling, pearly white fangs glistening.
It takes two to tango, as they say. I'm just teasing, though. I do not take offense if you didn't see it as such. I had a good time regardless. I was rather upset our night together ended so abruptly, but duty calls, right? It takes two to tango.
This time I really do elbow him, catching him square in the ribs. He's polite enough to let out a quiet oof, but I know he's truly unaffected. My elbow, on the other hand, he grins all lopsided and beautiful. Exactly, and I should probably be doing many other things other than talking to strange vampires in the snow at this early hour. Yes, like sleeping. And yet here you are. I sigh, joining him and leaning against the wall, my breath turning to mist against the cold air. Here I stay. I wish I knew what it was about him that draws me in besides the obvious. By all accounts, I should be overly cautious around such a creature, but Finn makes me feel more at ease than I thought possible. I need that tonight more than ever. I want to get to know him, to understand why my heart pounds so feverishly whenever he's near. I should head inside. Words sound dull, and I know I don't mean them. I'm looking for a reason to stay right here, anchored in this spot. You sound positively enthused. I shrug, sparing the old door of the tavern a glance. The sheets are scratchy. I'm just psyching myself up. That's fair. After a very brief pause, he quickly steals my gaze. He reaches out and runs a cool iron finger along the curve of my cheekbone. The etchings flicker in the darkness.
You are quite lovely, you know.
I can never resist the impulse to hit my head in blatant invitation. The way wolves show submission, burying the claw in my throat to a man who could rip it out in the blink of an eye. His cool digits stop over the place where my pulse thrums furiously. I no longer care that he can hear, that he knows what he's doing to me. He smells strangely like a dying summer, but I suspect his memories of sunshine are long dead.
Sweet dreams, fair hunter. I daren't keep you from your rest much longer.
My treacherous body shivers under his touch, and I mourn the loss of it when he finally pulls away. He quickly stuffs his hand back into his coat pockets, as if the temptation would be too much if he didn't. I take a deep breath and try to gather my wits. I can't seem to find it in me to mind. He smiles at that, and I sense reluctance as he pushes away from the wall, ready to depart.
Ah, alas, you have a town to save. Plus, the night is still young, for a creature like myself.
I sigh, staying closer than is probably necessary, craving contact of any kind as I watch his grin grow wider. Right, I really should head inside, though, I suppose.
A pleasure as always. And remember, we've got your back. Should we find anything of interest overnight, I'll come running. Daylight permitting, of course. Good night, Hunter.
I return and smile, pushing the heavy door to the wolf open and praying it doesn't creak and wake the other residents. Good night, Finn. I watch him go before I close the door, only the light of the moon guiding his way as he disappears into the darkness. Alright, I think we're gonna leave things here for now. If you're enjoying the video, if you're enjoying this series, feel free to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Maybe leave a comment if you have any extra thoughts on the game, how you feel about the characters so far, who you decided to romance, what have you. That would be great. But for now, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.